Hello, we're back again, continuing with the dress pattern that we're making. We're going to be doing the frill, the flounce of this dress. We're still on the front, so I'm going to be doing this front piece. So what we're going to do is go back to our block draft that we've drafted, and this is the flounce or the frill bit that we're going to use. So we're going to trace off that section here. So that's what I'm going to do. So you need your pattern paper, whether it's be plain, spot, brown paper, whatever paper you use. And I'm going to trace off this bottom section of the dress to create my frill. So once again, I'm going to place that on a sheet of paper like that. And I'm going to trace off. I'm going to use the tracing wheel. I'm going to do the tracing wheel method. And I'm going to trace along that line down there to the hemline and cross the hemline like that. Trace that off. And I'm going to go down the center front. So that's my piece that I've got there. So I'm going to trace that off. Now I've traced that off, I'm going to mark it off with the pencil like that, right along there so you can see it. So this section here is my center front, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide it into three sections. So divide that up into three like that, and I'm going to take the line all the way through to the hemline like that on the sections that I have marked on here. So like that, I'm dividing it into three. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to do what is called the slash and spread method. So I'm going to cut out that shape now. See, if you can remember, and must remember, you never cut up your draft. You always take everything from your draft and right to the very end of making your patterns, whatever pattern you're making, you always take it from your draft. Never cut your draft up. Always have it on the side so that you can always go back to it, so you know exactly what you're doing. So once we've separated it into three, I'm going to cut up on those lines like that. Right, not right through, leave a little bit at the top, and I'm going to do the same thing here up to there. And what I'm going to do on another sheet of paper, I'm going to get another sheet of paper, which I've got here. I'm going to use this piece, but I'm going to place this one on top so that you can see it a bit more clearly. So what I'm going to do, because this is the fold edge, center front, and it's on the fold, I'm going to fold the paper, the sheet of paper over. Make sure you've got a big enough paper to accommodate the hem of your the frill of your skirt. So you've got enough paper. So you've got to make sure the paper is big enough. This paper is not big enough, so I have to use a new sheet of paper. So let's put that away. That's what I just wanted to show you, that what's happening if you haven't got a big enough paper. So make sure that your paper is big enough, because when you slash and spread, it's going to open out. So I place my pattern there, which I've slashed, and I'm going to place the center front fold, center front to the center front to the fold of the paper. So once you've got that, you've got to secure it on your paper, whether with a pin or with your weights. I'm going to use just a little bit of prick stick just to hold it at that, so that make sure it's on the fold edge of the paper. So once it's down, you can free your hands up to work. So once you do that, what I'm going to do, because I'm just going to do a half circle, I'm just going to open them out if you want to do more than a half circle, the more you open the space, can you see those space there? Once you open them out, the more you open, the more your skirt will flare out. So, but it depends on you. You've got to decide what you want. But the space, they must be even. So if you've got 4 or 5 inches there, this must be 5 inches. So you open them out, you measure, and you measure to make sure that you've got the right measurement. So once you open out and you check that the measurement's right, you'll know that you're on the right track. What I normally use is my set square or a rule to square out, and I'll just open it right out till it touches my rule, my set square, like that. You can see I put that on the fold edge here, my ruler, and I know that is squared out. So once I'm happy with that, and I know the space is there, it's the same as it is here, what I do is I mark along the bottom of each piece, mark along the bottom of each piece, making sure that that is squared there. And then I do the same thing at the top, mark around that piece there where it's touching there at the top. So if you can see where it's broken, it's not a smooth line anymore. What we have to do is we can remove these pieces once we've got that marked out there. And what I'm going to do is to mark the line along there where that comes round to there and touch that space. And then once I've got that, I'm going to move my pattern pieces away from the new pattern piece that I've got. So if you take those off, you can put them one side because you've already got some indication of where you're going. So once we've got that, I'm going to extend that line a bit longer like that. And with your set square or your curve, if you haven't got a good steady hand to do a nice curve round, you've got to curve it all the way around so you get a nice curve. And you do the same thing at the hemline, the marks, you connect up these lines that you've marked at the bottom, but it's got to be a nice curve. So you either use your curve or you just shape it around very nicely so it's nice, it's got a nice curved edge. So once you've got that, you've got to make sure that your pattern piece that you've made already, your center front and your side bits, these bits here, you have to take the measurement from the center front to there, and whatever that measurement is along there, it has to be the same here. So you've got to measure your pieces of pattern and make sure you've got a measurement, and then you check it along there with your tape measure right around and see that it's measuring the same amount as it is on your garment, on your front and your side front. For example, I'll just show you how this is done. So you're going to measure from there, take away your seam, and you're going to, with your tape measure like that, and you measure from there to there, and whatever that is, you've got to check it to make sure that this measurement is the same. So I always stand up my tape measure because it's around from there to there, and you know it's the same amount of measurement. Once you've got that, then you can now do a nice shape, nice curve with your curve, or you can curve it freehand if you've got a steady hand. So once you've got that, you know that because this has to fit onto there. If you can remember, this is on the fold. So once you've got that, you've got to add your seam allowance, which I always say, because our pattern, our blocks haven't got seam allowance. So we do a 1/2 inch along the side, and we're going to do a 1/2 inch around where it joins the bodies of the dress. So 1/2 inch around there, and then we do a 1/4 inch around the hem. You can either do a 1/4 so that you edge stitch it, or you can super lock the edge. So it's just a 1/4 inch around the hemline of your pattern. You don't need a big seam allowance on there at all, because it's it's a very full skirt. So once you've got that, we're going to write on there front hem skirt, and we're going to cut one of those because you only need one of those. So once you've got that, we then cut out the shape, because what I'm going to say is this shape will be the same basically as the back. So we can use this same piece of pattern, but we've got to make sure it's got the same measurement when we come to do the back. But I'll show you how that is done, how we check that and how we go about doing that. So then you've got your hemline along there, and then we've got the seam allowance on the hemline, which is only 1/4, because that's the amount we need. We don't need 1/2 inch or anything bigger than that, because it's going to be too bulky. So we do the minimum seam allowance on the hem, like that. So that is your pattern piece for the hem of the skirt, and I'm going to open that out so that you can see that is now the front of the hem of the skirt. So I'm going to put on here on the center, that is the grain line. So we can either use the grain line going that way, or we can do another grain line which is not parallel along there, so it goes that way of the fabric as well. So you can place it that way as well as you can place it that way on your fabric. So that is your front, the front hem of the skirt, and that gives you the fullness around the hem of the skirt. So now we have completed the front skirt section there. So that goes to there, goes to the center front. That one will stitch to there like that, around there, and then we can put a notch where that goes, and then this one has got to fit from there all the way round to there. So if you see that, so that's how that is. So we'll have a grain line there, and we'll have one on the other side as well. So I just transfer that over there. We'll have a balance mark, not grain line, a balance mark. So that is your pattern pieces. We've got the 3 pattern piece for the front, but we've got to cut 1 for the bottom, 2 for the side, and 2 for the center front. So that completes your front. So we're going to go on to the back, and then when we will come back to that, you'll see how we go about the back. It's basically similar to the front, but I'll just want to go through it with you, how it's done. Okay, so we'll be back together in a little while. Bye.